Hello everyone, it's me Diego Villanueva, I'm a chess coach, and in today's video I'm gonna show you a masterclass where I talk about the important topic of how to analyze your chess games in 2024. What I'm gonna give you is a three-step framework to go through the whole process. Okay, this is a very important topic in case you want to improve your chess, since there's a lot of misconception about how to do it properly. But regardless of what is the approach you follow, reading your games, studying your games, it's a very important thing that every chess player that is serious about improving his chess needs to do. So I hope you enjoy it. I highly recommend you to have a notebook where you can take some notes. In the video, you will see me making some pauses to ask the participants to, some questions about how they would continue, how they would play some positions. So when you see me making these stops, you also stop, pause the video, and try to come up with a solution on your own. This way, you are going to make the material yours, and it is going to be a good use of your time. I hope you enjoy it. Welcome to these free weekly coaching calls. I want to do this every Tuesday night at this time, and let's start. So, you already know me. I'm the coach Diego Villanueva, and today we are going to talk about the three-step framework. Okay, so analyze your chess games and learn from your mistakes. So basically, first I want to talk about the common problem that most chess players have when it comes to improve their chess, and it's about like how they study their games. Okay, the way how they study the game of chess is sometimes it's not correct. Okay, and this is like the experience that most people have when it comes to study. So let's say that the game ends, you finish your game. It doesn't matter if you win or lose. You might want to take a look at the suggestions of the engine. So you turn on the engine, you open the game review or the analysis option, and you start your analysis. And basically the process is like the most people like use this approach, and that is consulting the computer about better moves, about missing chances or mistakes. And it's very easy to go through the game, watch, okay, why is this a blunder and how could I play this position better? And the thing that the computer does for you is it basically shows you the other alternatives, right? But that's it. It only shows you moves, ideas, but it doesn't explain you necessarily why that idea or that move is better. Okay. And some occasions it's kind of easy to understand. For example, if you miss the chance of capturing the queen, it's very easy to see, oh, here I missed the chance of capturing the queen. But in other situations, it's hard, And when that happens, that can leave you with a sense of, okay, thank you for the advice, but why this is a good move, And probably it's like a task that is very hard to comprehend. And this is the experience of most people. The computer shows you ideas, the computer shows you moves, lines, possibilities, but it doesn't explain you why. Okay, so basically, when you go through the process, you see how to win the game. However, no one tells you how to think to find those good moves. And you know, you finish this process by knowing everything, all the stuff you could have done to win the game. But at the end, it's like it's not very helpful. So basically, the question I have for you is like, if you're going through this process, are you actually learning? So the common feeling is like a feeling of confusion. It's like the computer gives you some ideas and you're like, okay, but why? Why this move is good? Why this sacrifice is good? Why should I push this pawn? Why should I stop castling? Why should I don't know, trade this bishop, trade this knight? The computer doesn't explain you why that move is good. And more, like I said, more importantly, it doesn't explain you how to think to find those moves, right? And the thing is, like, you play other games and you keep losing in similar ways. So let's say that because you have a level of, I don't know, you're a 12, 1300 rated player and you make mistakes, you make blunders, silly mistakes that you don't understand. They happen for a reason. right? But maybe you don't understand why they happen, and you keep losing the same way. So when you constantly repeat this pattern of losing the same way, something is going wrong, and actually you can learn the reason if you pay more attention to your games. And if you do this process correctly, eventually you will realize, okay, this is the reason why I'm blundering. But again, the way how most people study their games is not helpful. So basically the idea is that, if you are for some reason stressed or maybe discouraged about chess or about taking a look at your games because you don't actually get it, I want to show you, I want to tell you that it can be better, it can be funnier, it can motivate you. You know, the process of learning from your mistakes can be better. And if you do this right, you learn why you're stuck. Okay, so with a new level of clarity, I'm sure that you'll be motivated to improve your chess, because most people don't understand the reason of their mistakes, and since they don't have this level of clarity, they don't feel motivated to keep improving. It's like, okay, I'm stuck because maybe I'm too old, or I don't have talent, right? But it's not that. It's like most of the time we have one or two patterns that are, holding us back. But once you understand this, and through watching your games, you will realize that it's possible for you to improve your chess too. And the reward is that once you start learning this correctly, the process correctly, if you do this right, you will improve eventually, and you will be ahead of most players. Okay. So how to? Today we're going to review how to study your games. And if you search this in YouTube, if you search like how to analyze my games, you will find 100 different ways to analyze your games. Okay. Like there's a lot of information about the topic out there, and most of them are okay, since all those masters that teach their methods have their own way to study. Okay. And most of them are okay. That's why they reach that level they have. However, sometimes it's hard to replicate or explain it. Okay. So in this session, I'm going to try to do my best to show you my 3-step framework to do this. Okay. But more importantly, I want to teach you how to think. Okay. So you can eventually create your own mode, your own way to do this. Okay. You can copy this, you can use this. Eventually, you can make some tweaks so you have your own way to solve, to not to solve, but to study from your games, and more importantly, to learn from your mistakes so you start avoiding them. Okay. So let's talk about that. This is again the three-step framework. Let's talk about the first step, and I call it moments of uncertainty. So basically, there are 4 reasons why people make mistakes in chess: lack of certainty, lack of understanding, lack of a plan, lack of focus. Okay, I'm going to explain in a second the meaning of all of these moments, but the idea is like in this first step, you want to um, spot all of these moments. Okay, so during the first step of the process, you want to recognize them, and you want to point all of them. Okay, it's like, oh, here in this move, I was lacking certainty. Here, I was lacking understanding. I was lacking a plan. And here, I lack focus. It is important that once you start, paying attention to your games, you start adding some comments. So you are like again, you spot them, you write your notes down, and I'm going to explain you how to do it in a second. But it's important that you understand that most of the time you make mistakes in these 4 categories. Okay. Again, I think each case is different. Maybe you have other problems, but from my experience coaching a lot of people now, I know that we can, summarize all of these problems in 4 main categories. Let's talk about these categories. For example, the lack of certainty. These are moments where you weren't sure about how to continue, how to play, how to respond, especially in critical positions. And I add the hashtag unsure to explain this concept. So let's say that I'm studying my games, and I want to spot that moment where I wasn't sure about what to do. I add the hashtag unsure. So I remind myself that in this position, I didn't know how to play. Or maybe I already have a move on mind, but I was like unsure. I didn't trust my move. So how can you spot that you were lacking certainty in that situation? It's more about like paying attention to your feelings. Okay. So for example, let's say that you catch yourself thinking like, oh, in this moment, I didn't trust my move, my next move. Or in the moment, I don't feel in control of the position. I feel like my position can collapse anytime soon. I don't trust my instincts. I feel like something bad can happen anytime. or maybe this position makes me feel uncomfortable. So when this happens, usually we have a position that triggers these thoughts, these feelings. There's a high chance that we are not certain about how to continue. And the thing that most people do when they are lacking certainty is like they try to sell themselves the idea that they are thinking is correct. So, for example, let's say that you are calculating a critical position and it's tough, and you only have like one idea that looks good, but the time is, the time is running, and you're like, you only have that one idea. So the thing that happens is like you know that you're investing 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 minutes. Let's say you're playing an OTB classical chess game, and it's like you don't find your way, but eventually it's like you find some lines where the idea works, and that in just because that idea works in some lines, that makes you feel like that is the right idea. And in fact, it's not, because you are just considering one things, but you are missing some other things. But for some reason, our mind, you know, sells us the idea that move is correct, and we feel like we have certainty, but in fact, we don't have certainty. It's like a fake certainty. Okay, but if you try to be more honest about your moves, it's like, okay, I don't trust this move. I feel like it's very, very chaotic, this line I'm about to start. Maybe I can try something different, a more practical approach, less risky approach, but at least I feel safer. You know, it's just an example, but that happens a lot. So every time you find yourself in a position when you're unsure about how to continue, it's important that you point it out and you add a comment there. Let me show you an example of a game I played the other day. This is from the opening. It's why to move. Why just play the move pawn to d5. This is from a very common opening, but if you are not familiar with this opening as white, you can have a lot of problems from the beginning. So what will you play here? Just like, I'm gonna show you a lot of examples in this call. So let me know in the chat. Send me a message of what will you play here with the white pieces. Okay, I see that some of you are giving me the idea pawn to b3. Okay, so for those who are giving me pawn to b3, what if black plays knight to e4? What if knight plays knight to e4? Here's the thing. B3 is possible. In fact, this is from a game I played. I had the black pieces and I won this game, but I wanted to show you this position from the white's perspective. This position is part of the theory. Like I said, you actually need to know how to continue, because if you don't, black can get a very, very nice position out of the opening. It's very tricky. And usually, like, if you imagine what happened, the knight wasn't on a5, the knight was on c6, and the white pawn was on d4. So the last move for white was d5, and then I play knight a5. Okay? When that happens, usually you are not used to see the knight going to a5, but in this case, it really works. Well, the idea of this move is to attack the pawn on c4. So if you castle, for example, if you castle, if you play rook to b1, if you play whatever move, I can take on c4, and then you lose a pawn out of the opening, and black is fine. So you must do something about that pawn. In this position, if you play pawn to b3, the thing is, if you play pawn to b3, a sec. I'm gonna put it in the red color, so it's like it's better. So if you play this move, pawn to b3, then black can play knight to e4. What is the problem with this move? The problem with this move is that I'm attacking your knight, and if you capture my knight, then the bishop takes your rook. That's problematic, right? Okay. But the thing is, it works. It works. You know why? Because in this position, if you calculate one move ahead, if you go b3, knight e4, knight takes, and bishop takes a1, white can play the move bishop d2. And with the bishop on d2, you're attacking the knight, and the queen is attacking the bishop. Drop a 1 in the chat if you can visualize this idea, and if you can understand why bishop d2 actually is a playable idea for white. It's okay if you can't visualize it. I can explain you this idea. Like, I have the chessboard in front of me, so I can make some changes. But I want to know, like, how good is your vision? Okay. Okay, so I'm just gonna show you real quick this line. I think it's very interesting. Let's see. Give me a second. Here it is. From a game I played the other day. So we got. Whoop. So we got this position from the opening d4, knight f6, pawn to c4, here. Pawn to b3, and if knight e4, white can capture, and if bishop here, white can play the move bishop d2. And the knight is under attack, and the queen is attacking the bishop. So if I remove the bishop here, then bishop takes a5, and white is better. As you know, two pieces are stronger than a rook. What is the conclusion? b3 is possible. Now, why am I showing you this position now in this? Because we are talking about certainty. Because at this level, I was playing against a game against a 2300 guy. At that level, we can't make such decisions without a good or a decent level of certainty. b3 requires that, like, a move like b3 requires that you are able to watch all these tactical things that can happen. Okay, I'm pretty sure that he made b3 knowing that if I go knight e4, he can play, if I play knight e4, he can do all the stuff I just show you. I'm pretty sure he saw all of that, okay? But I just want to show you, like, sometimes you need to play with certainty. And the reason why I'm saying this is because, like I said, sometimes in critical positions where there are checks, captures, threats involved, most people don't realize how tricky a position is, or if they realize how tricky the position is, they tend to avoid the complications. And sometimes it's okay to avoid the complication if you know how big the complication is. But sometimes if you address the position is complicated, it's critical, you should embrace it and go for it. And the way how you do it is by calculating it accurately. But if you feel like you don't have the skills to go through it, then it's better to have a more practical approach. When I say a more practical approach, and if you want to avoid all of this mess, you can go knight d2 is one possibility. Queen d3 is another possibility. These two ideas help you to avoid all the mess. that can happen. Once again, b3 is possible, but if you play b3, you have to be ready to a move like knight e4. If you are not ready, then you're making a mistake. It's not a mistake in terms of your moves, but it's a mistake you're making in your thought process because you're playing a critical position without clarity, without certainty, a true certainty. Okay, now I know that this is kind of abstract, but it's extremely important because trust me when I tell you that a strong player, that person, like before they jump into these critical positions, they try to gather. The strong player tries to gather certainty by calculating, by observing the position, by understanding the position better before he jumps into the risk. Okay, so certainty is very important, and if you feel like you're lacking certainty, it's okay. You always have practical decisions, but it's important that you are like, if for some reason you don't trust your move, add that comment. Maybe in a position like this, you can go b3, but you were unsure about what to do if knight e4 is coming. That's a problem, for example. It's like, I'm going to play b3. This might work. This might not work. Let's go for it. That's a mistake because you are not playing with enough certainty. You want to be convinced your move is good. And sometimes, guys, your move you can be convinced that your move is good and still you can make a blunder, but that's okay because at least you play with a great level of certainty. And when it comes to analyze your games in your position, you'll be like, okay, I thought b3 was a great move, but it turns out it's a blunder. What happened? Oh, the computer says I have this specific, my opponent has this specific line where I get a bad position. Okay, that's why b3 is a mistake. But now you are looking for a contrast to see, like, I thought this idea was correct, but it turns out it's bad. Okay, when you can make that contrast, you are unlocking a new level of clarity. You thought it was correct, it turns out it wasn't correct, but it's fine, you're learning. Okay, that's why I love to lose games. I mean, yeah, sometimes from time to time I like to lose because that helps me to understand things that I don't understand. You know, we start getting stuck in chess when we assume we know everything, and it's like we are not, like, we don't try different things, and sometimes we can try a different thing and we can believe that is good. It turns out it's not good, and we need to understand why it's not good, and that's how we progress. Let's continue. So now, okay, we were talking about lack of clarity. Now let's talk about lack of understanding. Let me remove this. So another reason why people make mistakes is because they are lacking of understanding. But understanding of what? Well, understanding of the position. Every time you find yourself in situations when you don't understand how to assess the position, that is a problem. Because if you don't know what's going on, you will struggle to know what's going to be the plan, how to play the position for the next 2-3 moves. If you are playing a critical position, if you need to calculate, or if you need to be more like, if you can be more practical. So every time you find yourself in situations where you don't know what's going on, you should add the hashtag unclear. Okay? Examples. For example, when you find yourself thinking, oh, this position looks messy, looks chaotic. Or maybe I don't know what's going on. Or maybe I don't know who's better and why. I don't know if I'm winning. I don't know if he's winning. Or maybe I know I'm better, but I'm not how much. Because even if you have a better position, there are levels of that. You can be slightly better, you can be much better, you can win. You can be like winning, right? And you need to know in which state you are. Because if you don't do that, and if you don't know how to improve your assessment skills, then it's going to be hard for you to know what to do. Just so I give an example, this is something that happens all the time at all levels. I see this pattern with my 1,100 students, my 1,500 students, my 2,000 rated students, okay? Because there's always room to improve this. You can improve this step by step. There always will be new levels of doing this correctly and better. So a typical situation I see is when, for example, you kind of know you are better, but you don't fully understand why. And it turns out that the reason why you're better is because you have better development, you have your king is already safe, and your opponent king is in the center, he's lacking development. And what do? Because you don't know how to assess the position and you don't understand that's your advantage, you start doing like embracing trades. You start trading pieces, trading material. in a position where your advantage is dynamic. And instead of increasing this dynamic by keeping the tension, attacking new targets, you start unleashing the tension, trading pieces, trading material, and you start losing the dynamic until the position gets even, and then you don't have the advantage anymore. So that is a problem of a lack of understanding. Okay, the position was unclear, and it's okay. You don't have to know everything, but it's important that you are honest enough to say, okay, I don't get this position, and from here I did whatever, and that's something you know to understand. And that's why maybe you have this feeling of before where you depend on your good luck or in the mistake of your opponent. Like you don't have a plan. Like you find yourself, regardless of what's your level, if you're playing against a high rated opponent, or when you're starting playing chess or whatever, you find yourself in situations where you were lucky and you feel like you depend that your opponent makes a mistake or a blunder to win rather than having a solid plan. Okay, you are lacking a lot of understanding. Once again, that's fine. It's your starting point. All of us start somewhere, but that's the reason why you are not progressing. Okay. Um, let's see. Yeah, another reason can be lack of a plan, and this is what I call lack of direction or a long-term vision. So every time you fail, you lack a plan or struggle to create a plan you really like, uh, or you make moves that don't benefit you without thinking in the long term. Okay, so every time like you are in a position where you don't know what's the plan, how to continue, but not in terms of the next move or the next two moves, because we already discussed that in the unclear stage. It's more in the long term. Okay, how do I want, for example, you have a winning position. How do you want to convert this winning position in the long term? This lack of long-term vision can also affect your quality of your moves. And I think like most people misunderstand because the computer is very good to tell you this. It's very subtle. Most people don't get it. But once you start thinking the long term, you can start watching like, okay, this trade was incorrect because I really need this bishop in the future to win the game. I really need this piece to win the game in the future. It's going to make things easier for me. But if I trade right now, I'm gonna make things harder for me. So every time you find yourself lacking direction, lacking a long-term vision, hashtag plan, and you should write it down. Okay. Example: if you feel like this is one example, like for example, let's say that you have a position you really like, but you can do a lot of things and you don't know how to play or where to start. That is a great example of you're lacking a plan. Or maybe you have a position that feels dry, that feels boring, that feels hopeless, that you don't know, you don't have idea of how to continue. Not now, not necessarily now, but in the next 5, 6, 7 moves. That is an example that you're lacking a plan. Or maybe you know what can be the plan, but you don't like it. You don't like the plans you have at hand. Or your opponent has like, or let's say I added this example. Like let's say that, oh, my opponent has this threat, this attack. Let me trade some queens. So for example, I have seen situations where people trade a lot of material because they are getting attacked and they trade a lot of material. They are simplifying the position, but in reality, they don't need to. Okay, this is another concept that I would like to talk about more in the future, but simplifying, it's a very important concept that it's important to use in some specific situations, but I think most people misunderstand. You're not supposed to simplify in situations where, for example, you need to play in a more dynamic way. You need to use your pieces actively. You need to attack, add pressure. I see all the time where situations where you need to attack, people start trading material because they think that will lead them to play an easier game. That's not true. So every time you feel like you're lacking direction, you're lacking a long-term vision, add the hashtag plan. Example from this position, like this is like the same game I just showed you, but a couple of moves later. It's white to play again. In the previous game, the pawn was on b3. Then what happened is like I play rook b8, I play a6. The opponent is playing bishop d2. So what will you play here? It's white. By the way, for those who are watching the recording of this, every time I make a pause, you can also think with us and try to make some notes and also reflect on these positions too and interact with the video. Okay. All right, guys. So most of you gave me the move rook c1. And in fact, that's the move white made here. He played the move rook c1. Now, why am I adding this example in the category of lack of a plan or lack of a long-term vision? Because most of the time, when you don't know what to do, how can you recognize a good plan when you struggle to know what to do? You can also observe what your opponent wants to achieve. Okay, what is the idea for black here? Black has a pawn on a6, a pawn on b7, a pawn on rook on b8, a rook on b8. The idea for black is going to be pawn to b5. And with that pawn break, black will be able to open the b file for the rook. Drop a 1 in the chat if you understand my idea. If you understand what I'm trying to say here. Again, there's a pawn on a6, pawn on b7, rook on b8. Is it clear that black wants to play b5? Okay. So why am I telling you this lack of a plan, lack of long-term vision? When it comes to reflect on our mistakes, we can also reflect on the lack of understanding of the ideas of the opponent. In this category of lack of a plan, we can also try to see like if we understood the long-term plan or the position my opponent wants to play. If you, as white, if you allow your opponent to go b5 successfully, he's going to open the b file, and then with the bishop on g7, the rook on b8, he can put a lot of pressure and a lot of things in the queen side. For example, if black successfully can go once again here, and then pawn takes, then the knight will attack c4 again. And now you have to take an eye, like put an eye on c4. Not only this, but black is going to have access to the b file, and it's going to be protected by the bishop. So how can you prevent this? By playing a4. And actually here, white needs to play pawn to a4. Do you see why it's important to play a4? Because if you play a4 and b5 comes, pawn takes, knight takes b5, white is better. So that move a4 is very important because that way you are putting an end to the long-term plan for black. And maybe you don't notice it, but most of the time you lose games because you allow your opponent to play the game he wants to play. Especially in the middle game. Have you ever played a position where your opponent had the initiative all the time and you didn't make any blunder, but your opponent had a plan from the beginning and he was attacking you, and it feels like, okay, I lost the game, but I didn't make any mistake. I didn't blunder pawn. Why did I lose? In fact, I felt very uncomfortable from the beginning. Well, that happens because you allow your opponent to play the game he wanted to play. You didn't understand the long-term vision he had. And the thing is, if you want to prevent b5, it's now or never, because b5 is coming. You know? And the thing is, my opponent played rook to c1, which is a very natural move, by the way. It's very natural to play rook c1. You see the bishop on g7, you see the rook on e1 moves before you saw the problem that bishop can start to that rook. So you're like, okay, let me remove my rook right now from a1 so I avoid any tactical complication. The thing is, you need to keep the rook right now there, and probably you can move it later to b1 or c1. But the thing you need to do right now is to prevent b5. And the thing is, let me show you this real quick. I'm gonna show you the game again. Let's go to the other view. I think I closed it. Now it's here. Let me show you this again. I want you to pay attention to also to the assessment of the computer. Okay, also keep an eye on here. Okay. I play c5, bishop d2, pawn to e6, castle, rook b8, and here's the position. The best move for white is a4. You know, and if you play a4, the position is going to be even. And here, if for example white goes a4, then I will have to, okay, I can't attack the queens, I know, but I will have to go like this, for example, and try to open the center. But the game can continue. In fact, white should be okay. What is the problem? He played rook c1, and I want you to pay attention to the color, because when the colors are white, that is better or slightly better for white. But once white plays rook c1, can you see how it turns black? And what is the move? Pawn to b5. But it's not about the b5 itself. It's about that now I'm going to be happy to play the game I want to play. So sometimes it's not like, and this is something like I often say when I'm teaching openings. Don't focus too much when you're learning openings. Don't focus too much on getting like a huge advantage from the opening, like creating traps. Don't focus too much on that. Focus on creating positions you like to play, the position you want to play in the long term, in the next 10 moves, you know? Because if your opponent allows you, or you create the chance that you can play a position that you feel good about, and you know what are the plans, you know where to put your pieces, that's perfect, because you're playing your game, the game you like. Now my opponent allowed me to play the game I wanted to play, and even if it says that it's close to equal, because it says 0.21, the position is going to collapse pretty soon, and he's a 2300 guy. But before we jump into that, let's continue with the call, with the session. Let's go to the presentation. Let me know in the chat if you're learning something now. Drop a 1 in the chat if you find this valuable. Hey, just a quick stop here. I just want to let you know that these videos are part of some live weekly calls I do every Tuesday. So if you want to participate in these calls too, and you want to watch these calls, these master classes, you can do it for free. You only need to go to the link below, and the link I'm going to put in the description, so you can join these calls, you can sign in, and you can actually, well, have access to my newsletter. And in this newsletter, I'm going to let you know the links, access to it, the recordings, among other free stuff that I'm sharing in my free community. So if you want to participate, go below, and so you can join the calls as well. I enjoy preparing this. I know that it's going to be valuable for you guys. The other problem is lack of focus. This is a very common one. I think like most of you can feel relatable, like related to this, the lack of focus. I think this speaks for itself. It's when you weren't paying enough attention. So you made a mistake or you missed an opportunity. Okay. This has like two opposites. You know, one extreme can be like you weren't paying attention, so you made a blunder, a mistake, a silly mistake, or maybe you, just because you lacked focus, you missed a huge opportunity. And sometimes it's a shame, because it's like for some reason we are lacking this focus. We make a move, and instantly, the moment we drop the piece, or the moment we drag the piece and left the piece on that square, we instantly know, oh, I just made a blunder, you know? And that is a tragedy. Or maybe it's like you make your move and you realize that you could take a free queen, a free knight, a free rook, and it's like, you know, that's horrible, right? I think this is very, very, very easy to spot, but still it's important to write it down. Why? Because if you are constantly lacking focus, something is going wrong in your external world. Most of the time, something externally is affecting your focus. Maybe you're stressed, you're sleepy, and when that happens, you should rest. So what are the examples of these situations? Well, I just made a good move. I wasn't expecting this. So whenever your opponent is surprising you with good moves, okay, maybe it's because you're not paying attention, or maybe he's cheating. But most likely it's because you're not paying attention. It's like, I didn't expect this move. I didn't expect this sacrifice. It's okay that that happens to you in one game, but if it's happening to you a lot, okay, you're in focus. You need to fix something, right? You need to fix something, and most likely you need to fix something in your external world, some stuff outside of your chess practice that you need to solve. Well, when that happens, you should add what I like to do is to add the hashtag miss. Another example is this position, again, from the position I just showed you. My opponent just played pawn to e4. As you can see, finally I could play the plan pawn to b5, pawn takes, pawn takes. Then my opponent played pawn to e4. It turns out this is a mistake. Black to play. How can I exploit this mistake? It's black to play this time. Very good, guys. Yeah. Oops, sorry. The move is pawn to b4. And yeah, I think if I play b4, the knight is under attack. He has to remove the knight. Knight takes e4. Black has advantage. And I think like my opponent went a little bit careless here, but in fact the position is already complicated. You know, with the mass of pawns on c5, b4, b5, c5, I can do c5. I can do c4. I can do b4. I can do bishop a6 first, and then b4. I mean, the position is still playable, right? But I'm creating a lot of threats. Even if you don't play e4, let's say, I don't know, let's say that you also make a move like pawn to h3. Let's put back the pawn to e2. Imagine the pawn is on e2 and the pawn is here, okay? And instead of e4, white does a move like h3. b4 is still coming, and then I can take e5 later. So yeah, it's complicated, right? All of this happened because he allowed me to go b5. You know, like he's creating a tough position. That's what I'm saying. If you're lacking the vision, you will lack the vision for you and for your opponent. If you lack vision in your position because you don't understand it, trust me when I tell you that you will also lack the vision to understand the plans of your opponent or how he wants to play in the next 5-10 moves. And you will allow moves like this, and then you will find yourself holding a position where you feel inferior or worse. And that's not optimal, correct? Good. So let's talk about the step 2. So let's say that you like have your game, you add this game. By the way, I didn't say this, but it is important that you have your own database, a place where you keep your games and you can analyze them and you add comments. You can use ChessBase if you want to go pro, but you'll also chess.com and Lichess allows you to do this. Both of them allow you to create your own study, your library, so you can add games there, and from there you can add some notes. So every time like you're going through these games and move by move, you add these hashtags: miss, unclear, right? You can also add your own hashtags: uncertain. Okay, this is my idea. My the 4 main categories I have found analyzing hundreds of games as a coach, right? But you can do the stuff like you can do the same stuff for you. You can make some tweaks, whatever it works for you. But the idea is like the reason why we want to do this is because we want to be more aware of the type of mistakes we make. You cannot solve anything. You cannot solve any problem if you don't have awareness of the existence of that problem at the first place. So that's why we want to do the step number 1. Step number 2, reflect on thoughts and feelings. Okay. So basically, when you are going through these hashtags and you find like and you are going through your moves, you have to write down your analysis and the things and the lines/moves you consider. So probably during the game you were on a position number 10, you were calculating some stuff that didn't happen. It is positive to write down all the stuff that didn't happen but you did consider. As an additional note, it is important to do this process of analyzing your games just after the game finishes, okay? Because you're still fresh. Now, I get it that sometimes maybe you're playing OTB too late. Okay, it's fine if you take a rest until the next day, but the sooner you do this, the better, because you're still fresh. So my recommendation is like you add extra comments, like the moves you consider but didn't happen, your analysis during the game. So for example, during one position, you can be like, in this position, I was afraid of knight g5. That's why I played pawn to h6, to avoid knight g5. Or maybe position 29, bishop d6. Okay, I was expecting bishop f6 instead. I didn't see bishop d6 coming. Okay, or maybe queen c7. I'm just throwing in some random examples, right? But it's like queen c7. I feel uncomfortable. I don't like my position. Stuff like that, you know, add your thoughts. So because these thoughts, these emotions trigger some response. And I want to talk about this in more detail, like in the future calls, but this is very important. Like our emotions will most of the time will trigger some reaction, and we need to see through them, okay? Because sometimes we can play in a very reactionary way. We don't want that. We can be reactive. We don't want that. We don't want to react to the opponent. We only do it when we are forced to, not because we want to do it. And also, you have to reflect on how you felt during the game, especially in those moments where you lack one of the four elements. So, for example, add notes like, I was afraid of X move. I didn't like this move. Maybe it didn't happen, but I was afraid of this. Or I disliked my position. Or maybe I'm winning, or I was winning, but I felt anxiety, I felt some pressure because I felt like I could make any mistake anytime. Put that, write it down. Because if that happens to you once, most likely it's going to happen to you in the next game or in the next situation when you have the same situation, right? If you're someone who feels like anxiety when you're winning, especially in those moments when you're playing against a high-rated opponent and then you're winning, and you're like, oh my God, I'm winning. I'm beating this 1800, this 2000 rated player. You are a 1500 guy. Well, maybe you're like, oh my God, I'm playing very, very well. But just because you have all these negative experiences before, you're like, I'm going to, blunder a piece anytime. Okay, write it down. Okay, write it down. It's very important to observe these thoughts, observe these feelings. Let me show you an example. This is going to be the last example. We are getting close to the hour, so we are starting like finishing this. But this is a very common position from the Scotch Gambit, popular line. This is actually, I'm going to show you a game from Hikaru Nakamura. He's playing with the white pieces. And well, here the theory demands, there are a lot of moves you can do with black. Knight f6 is one possibility. My question is, what do you think about the move pawn to h6? What do you think about the move? Maybe you don't know e4. You don't play pawn to e4. But what do you think about the move pawn to h6? Write your thoughts in the comment. Do you think like that move makes sense? Is that a move you would make in that position? Do you think it's necessary? Do you think you can do other stuff? What will you say here? Hey Jody, can you hear me?
Oh, wait. Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, we are almost finishing, man. But I'm gonna send you the recording.
All right, I appreciate it. Maybe you can play me one day.
Sure. We are studying this position. It's black to play. Actually, we're studying the move h6. If h6 is a good move or not. You can write it down in the comments. Yeah, so h6 is not good. It's not a good move. It makes sense, but just because it makes sense doesn't mean it's a good move. And this is a mistake I see all the time in games from people who are below 15, 1400. Why? Because people that make h6, people that make h6 is like chess players that have experience how horrible this combo can be. The Freiliber. But the Freiliber works in a very specific context in the Italian game. This is not the Italian game. And there is a reason why it works. Okay? So this is not a right time for white to play knight g5. There's no need to play the move pawn to, since white is not going after knight g5, there's no need to go h6. And even if, let's say that you are too much worried about the move knight to g5, there are better ways to defend knight g5. You can go bishop e7. Again, I'm not saying bishop e7 is the best move to face knight g5, but it's better than h6. Why? Because if you play bishop e7, you're developing a piece, and that piece is also protecting g5. So you are doing a good thing. For the wrong reasons, but it's better. Okay? Now, why am I showing you this? Because most of the time, since we have some negative feelings about a position, we can make a bad decision. Like, I don't like this position, white is doing this, and now we're putting too much attention to the idea of the opponent, and we miss the big picture. That happens at all levels. I'm just showing you a basic example that happens in games from 1500s, but that happens in different levels, where you put too much attention to a move just because it triggers something inside, an emotional response, and you forget about the big picture. And you, instead of being objective, you are being like emotional. And that's the worst thing you can do when you're playing chess. By the way, we're going to discuss it in the next call, how to improve the quality of our decisions. But yeah, let me show this real quick. Hopefully you have some time to watch this. This is from an analysis I've made in a game from Hikaru Nakamura when he was playing the Scotch Gambit against a player who is 1500. Okay, he's not a total beginner. He's a 1500 guy. So in this position, Hikaru Nakamura played the opening. This is a Scotch Gambit. And, well, in this position, black can play bishop e4, check, bishop c5, knight f6. These are the main lines. However, black went h6. So Hikaru just, took on d4. And then black played the move bishop c5. Now, it feels like you are doing the right thing. It's like, okay, I just played bishop, I just played pawn to h6. And now that I finally cover all the dangers with knight g5, now I can continue my development. But the thing is, this is not over. Hikaru played the move queen h5, and now you have a double problem. The queen attacks here, and the queen attacks here. The only way to defend this is by doing queen e7. But in fact, here, a better move was bishop takes f7, king takes, queen h5, white is winning. Here, and white is crushing black's position. Right? Queen h5 is still good, but queen e7 is good enough to defend everything. Hikaru capture, pawn takes, and still he played the move bishop f7. And this is complicated. Here, I would feel very uncomfortable. The best move is king d8. Okay, who on earth can make a move like queen d8? The computer likes it, but still, white is better. But you need to make this move. Here instead, black captured the bishop, and then Hikaru just picked the bishop on c5. Which side is better? White. Not only because you have an extra pawn, but because, your pawn structure is weird. You have a pawn in the center that controls the center. Knight f6, pawn to f3 to defend the pawn, bishop d7, castle g5, knight to c3. And well, Hikaru won the game a couple of moves later, but the position is, objectively speaking, is better for white. An additional note, you can't castle. You can go kings, you can castle kingside, you can't castle queenside because queen a7, so you're cooked in this position. What is the problem? In this position after bishop c4, maybe black didn't know the theory, or maybe he knew the theory, but he was concerned about knight g5, and he decided to go to h6. Now, if you make a move like that, now you feel like you're safe, but you're not safe. The position is still tricky. This is not the best move for black, And here white just can capture on d4, and queen h5 is coming. It's going to be a mess for black, just because you lost a tempo with h6. So the reason why I'm showing you this, it's because sometimes our emotions define our next move. In this case, it's a negative emotions, fear. You fear the move knight g5 coming. But sometimes we can feel positive about a move and we can make a mistake due to that positive emotion. Like let's say you're crushing your opponent, and then you see like a combination that works pretty well. Your mind sells yourself that idea. We already talked about how sometimes the mind sell ideas to us, and because we feel excited, we don't double check it, we make a sacrifice, and we end up losing the game because it wasn't correct. So it can happen in different levels: a negative feeling, a positive feeling, but in fact it's a negative one because you're being emotional. So that's why I take very seriously the process of writing down the emotions as well. That's something you should do too, and add lines as well. That's why the step 2 is also very important. Let's go back to the presentation. We almost finishing this. Let's see. All right. Okay, so let's continue. Step 3, evaluate your moves. I still want to, I want to talk about this in more detail in the next calls, but basically it's like in this process, you need to add symbols. You know, the symbols of exclamations or interrogation, right? These marks. It's important for you that you start adding these symbols more often, but not with the help of the engine. Turn off the computer suggestion. Like you need to start putting like, making you need to start giving some assessments to your moves. If you feel you play a really good move, just add the exclamation mark. If you don't know the meaning of these symbols, send me a message. I'm gonna send you a YouTube video about it, the meaning of the symbols, but you really need to study the meaning of the symbols because it's a way to make an assessment of how good your move is or how bad your move is. Okay, so every time you find yourself thinking like this move was great, add a symbol, an exclamation mark. If you feel like move is a mistake, add an interrogation mark. Once you finish the process, contrast your move like to the idea of the computer. Sometimes you feel like you're playing very well and your moves are okay, are excellent, but in reality, the moves are you're playing bad moves. Okay, or maybe you might feel like you just made a really bad move, but it turns out it was a very necessary move. So it is important that you start learning the symbols and use them more often. Okay, if you don't know what they mean, just like search in YouTube like chess symbols or chess notation, and you will have free tutorials of like what do they mean and so you can use them more often. And chess.com allows you to introduce the symbols. Okay, once again, what is the importance of doing this? The importance of doing this is that you actually you can contrast your ideas with the computer. Okay, so let's say that you start adding the symbols like, oh, here I did a good move. Oh, this move was good. This move was bad. This move was bad. This move was a blunder. This move was an excellent move. This move was brilliant. And you add the symbols with the engine off, then you turn it on at the end and you contrast. Oh, I thought this move was very good, but it turns out it's not good. I thought this move was okay. It was bad, but it turns out it's very good. And then you need to understand what happened. Why did you think this move was good? In fact, it was bad. Why? What happened? The engine will give you a lot of hints. Okay, but every time you feel like there's no match, your job is to understand what happened. Oh, I thought this move was good. It turns out it's not good. So for example, let's go back and let's take a look at this position. Black played h6. The black player thought h6 was good, but let's say that he's following this process, and before he turn on the engine, he's going through the process, step 1, step 2, step 3, and he marks h6 as a good move. And it turns out that it's very bad, and the computer is going to tell him it's bad. Well, okay, why h6 is bad? I'm preventing knight g5. If he has a coach or if he has someone who can explain that, he will understand that h6 is no necessary. And here bishop c5 might be a better move, or knight f6, which is part of the theory. But it is important to seek that contrast. Okay, it's very, very important. Okay, guys, so this is it for today. Next week, I'm going to do this every Tuesday night. Okay, next week, we're going to study how to make better decisions on the board. We're going to study why most chess players make poor decisions. Also, we will study how to improve the quality of your moves and how to find brilliant moves more often. Okay, it's going to be very interesting. I'm going to prepare another presentation. And well, I hope that you really enjoy this presentation as well. If you know someone who's also an adult chess player that might have some might get some value out of this calls, invite that person to the calls. And yeah, this is it for today. Have a good night. See you next Tuesday, okay? Take care. If you have any questions, let me know on chess.com, send me an email, and we can talk there. Take care. Bye-bye. So this is it for today. I hope that you learned something valuable in this call. Reading your games, learning how to do it properly is a key phase, it's a key aspect of any chess training. And if you're serious about improving your chess, you're gonna get good at doing this. This recording is from a masterclass I did the other Tuesday, and you can also participate in the free coaching calls. I do them every week, and I'm gonna drop the link below so you can participate in them. You just leave your email. I'm gonna send you some updates with the links. The access to that is free. The only requisite to be part of this course is to be older than 25 years old, since I am more focusing on helping adult improvers in chess. So that's it. That's pretty much it. Just register below, and I'm gonna send you access information about the calls, and also free stuff, free resources, free courses that I am creating inside of my community, my free community. On another hand, if you're looking for a coach to work on a one-on-one relationship, I'm also leaving my link on how to work with me personally, and you just need to register, and you can also book a call with me. So I can take a look at your games, we can discuss about your progress so far, and I can give you my feedback on how you can improve your chess for free. So let me know. I'm going to drop the links in the description, and hope to see you in my coaching calls next week.